Hi, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful conversation from the Tap In series. I'm Amrita Tripathi, a former journalist. I used to head content partnerships for Twitter in India, and I'm the co founder of Tap In. As some of you know, we've been trying to get you conversations with some global leaders, some Indian leaders, CXOs, and folks who can really give you some tangible takeaways and not just the 30,000-foot view. It gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce you to Uche Adebite, who's joining us from New York, first thing in the morning on a Sunday, I might add. Thanks so much, Uche, for doing this.
Wow, Amrita, it's such a pleasure to be connected with you again. I'm really excited about this and just really pleased and happy for you for this sort of venture. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Uche. I'm going to start by talking about some of your accomplishments because the list is long. And just in terms of background, we got a chance to work together at Twitter, and Uche was one of those people who could pull together multiple stakeholders. It's not the easiest thing to do in a matrix organization and actually get things done. So that's where our paths crossed. But you have trained as an electrical engineer, you studied at MIT, you've worked at Twitter, Microsoft, and now Google. And I think, a huge pat on the back for everything you've accomplished so far.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It takes a village, and I've been extremely fortunate to have a really good support system, and a very strong women too. Very strong role model women. So yeah, it's been.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about that, Uche, because one question I have for you, especially for women in STEM, if you had a message for your younger self or for younger women who are going into these fields today, what would that be?
Oh, growing up in STEM, it was a lonely situation. Not many women of color and not many women. I think one of the biggest things I wish I would have had more and more just reassurance is that I'm meant to be here, right? There's no such thing as a gender that's more qualified for STEM. We are all equally capable of the sciences as well as the arts. And so just constant reinforcement of anything that's inside you, the ideas, they're all equally relevant. It doesn't really, the gender is not what determines your abilities, right? And so, and certainly not skin color. So just that really just confidence boosting to understand that like you're meant to be here, you have the potential to be able to create, ideate, and it has nothing to do with gender. It has more to do with your creativity, your curiosity, and your drive. So encouragement, really. Encouragement is the name of the game because, yeah, it's not going to be easy. You may not see people that look like you throughout the journey, but that isn't to deter you. Like, I really, not only is it important we have more women, as I've gone through my career in STEM, males and females bring different perspective and different skill sets. Like, pattern recognition is a huge part of a lot of the capabilities and foundational elements to technology. And I find that it just came naturally to me. My ability to put things together, collaboration is super important in engineering. So there is a need for these kinds of traits. And, a lot of women can bring this to the table without even having to consider it. So encouragement and don't be deterred.
And you've spoken in the past about the tangible benefit of having diverse teams. That's something you're very passionate about.
Yes, because I know that the word has been, there's been a lot of marketing associated to the word diversity. But what I talk about is diversity of perspectives. In any given situation, you're able to see one angle of things. And the more people you're able to bring together to the table to help you collate a much more comprehensive, cohesive view of something, the stronger your ability to solve that problem is, the more ideas that will be brought to the table and the different perspective. And especially because as engineers, we're solving problems for other people. And you may not have had that lived experience, and that's okay. But having a team, building a team that has many perspectives, you have a higher chance of being able to create that empathy that's required to try and look at the problem from the user's perspective, so that you're more detailed, so that you think about the nuances that if you haven't lived it, you may not even realize is happening in that part of the world or for those user segmentation. So it's very important that you're collecting different perspectives. It's very important that you build a team that doesn't look like you, right? If you build a team that looks like you, you're limited to yourself and your capacity. You always want to be expanding and looking at, what don't I know, right? That's the curiosity element. Like, what don't you know? And lean into that. The unknown is the beginning of discovery. It's the beginning of, really being innovative, right? What you already know, you've already done. It kind of limits that creativity. So I'm always looking for different perspectives. And that's where diversity, it's not just diversity of backgrounds, it's diversity of lived experience, perspective, skill set. The more diversity in that diversity corner, the better for us.
No, that's fascinating. And it's incredible to have seen some of that in action, because it's very difficult to actually, pull it off. You make it sound easy when you talk about it, but it's really hard to pull it off.
I lean into it, Amrita. I think that people fear of the unknown is a big deterrent for people, but I look at fear as, it's sort of my like personal assistant in my brain, helping me figure out what I don't know. It's like, have you considered that? Right? What about this? What if this happens? It helps me like spar to be like, okay, this situation, I've never been there. How should we look at it? How can we risk mitigate? And when you flip the fear into that mode, you realize it's a tool for you, right? You don't want to go into a situation unprepared. So having something that is questioning the way you're thinking or saying, we don't know what's going to happen, I turn that and go, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. What if this happens? I start to do scenario and I spar with myself. And then I have actual concrete things I could use to mitigate risks as they show up, right? So I use everything as a tool for myself. Like, you can't lose. You just cannot lose if you look at everything as a tool.
That's fantastic. I'm taking notes, by the way, as we speak. This is a good one.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions for you on your journey, and then a few that I hope that we can, sort of zoom out, because it's a pretty tough environment for a lot of people right now.
Absolutely.
We'd like to get some of your tips there. But in your career, there must have been quite a few sort of aha moments. Can you share with us maybe one or two that it just changed maybe the way you were thinking or the way you sort of applied yourself to your professional life?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on, one of the first aha moments is that you can't have other people set the bar for you of what is good enough, right? Everyone's definition of good is up to them. It's up to their perception and up to their experience. And so the aha moment was, up until I started my first job at Microsoft, I'd been an A student. I did what I was told, right? From my family, I had a very strong mother. God bless her. She was one of my role models. But I pretty much did everything she told me. Everything she told me was beneficial. But what I didn't have when I first came into my job was my own individual perspective of what does success look like for me? What is success for my life, right? And so I found myself in a situation early on where my manager was putting their bar of what their success was, which was not what I would have wanted. And it dawned on me, the aha moment was, if you don't speak up and take the time to figure out what is important to you and what does success look like, which there's no right or wrong, it's what you want, then you run the risk of being led down someone else's life, someone else's expectation, and someone else's definition of how far you can go. And so I learned that, luckily for me, I learned that early on. I learned this in my early 20s due to the grace of some other mentors, where I really was questioning why didn't this manager think highly enough of me to, put me up for this promotion or to give me these opportunities? And they really were like, you have to take it into your own hands. It's not their place to determine how far you go in your career. That's up to you. So that was the first aha moment, a very useful lesson that I learned early on, which is I take it into my hands and I decide like how I'm crafting my life. It's super important to be aware of where you're going and how you're crafting. The other aha moment is, it kind of builds on that. People, based on their experiences and the status quo, will tell you this is what good looks like and what is possible, and don't go down that path. You're never going to be able to be successful. I call BS on that. In my career, I found that the moment I took reins of what I found important, which for me was collecting skill sets and experiences and putting myself in situations that would allow me to flex different perspectives and different muscles that I built, right? So I wasn't so much looking for a linear path. I was looking for the curvy journey. I was trying to enjoy the journey. It wasn't about getting to the destination. And I took a sabbatical, right? Everyone said, hey, no, you're not going to be able to get a job again. And I was like, okay, we'll see, won't we? So the second aha moment is it's you and the universe. Like, no one else actually knows what's going to happen. Everything else people are talking about is based on their past or projections of fear. So it's very important that you take what you are excited about, of what you're trying to do, and figure out a path that can get there. Don't try and copy someone else's path. Be open to the idea that it's okay that you don't know how it's going to transpire. I've actually found that a lot of the great things that happened in my career, I never planned for. It was almost serendipitous. Like, we were trying to go left and we ended up going right because of being flexible and seeing that, okay, we thought the solution was left, but it turns out our mistake showed us that we should go right. So my mistakes were actually really course correctors. This is why I'm saying, like, everything is a tool. Fear is a sparring partner. My mistakes are course correctors, and they tell me where the solution, how I need to get off one path and go to the next. And so the second aha moment is, you're the architect of your pathway. Do not try and copy someone else's path. Like, realize that you're designing your life with the universe, and then also understand that you're part of the architecture of how that's going to transpire. I think that's so important, and it's so important for women in general, because as a leader, I find, what I was doing in my 20s, I still see a lot of women way up into their mid-careers and beyond, asking people, what should they do? What is their success, and just accepting that. And I think that's a shame, because our male counterparts do not do it that way. They're very much in the driver's seat. They're very much dictating and asking for what they want. And that's part of the reason why I take it upon myself to be like, whatever I can do, because we weren't necessarily encouraged when we were growing up to ask for what we wanted, and taught the skill set to be able to ask for what you want in an authentic way, without it crossing over into any, sort of malperceived, like you're asking for too much, or you're aggressive, or whatever microaggression words people will throw at you. So yeah, like, you have to at some point realize that you're the only one who can decide what success looks like. And second, once you take radical accountability of that narrative, then take the driver's seat. Like, really realize that there isn't a one size fits all pathway to be able to go there, and pay attention to, like, different options. Mistakes can guide you onto a different path that is useful for you. Like, use every opportunity. Those two have been huge, because those two are the guardrails in what has happened in my life, if you think about it, right? Like, otherwise, I couldn't have told you how my career was going to unfold. But when I look back, I'm super grateful, right? Yeah. Because I had those foundational elements through those aha moments.
And Uche, this is fascinating. And also, you have been such a champion of other women, like, just without sharing too much detail. But when we worked together, one of the things that I found fantastic was that you helped us shine a light on the work we were doing. And you were like, this is incredible work. Why does no one know about this? And thanks to you, my own team sitting in another market got to hear about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to use that to ask you a little bit, because we do know that, of course, there are socio-cultural reasons and there's conditioning, but sometimes it seems a little bit harder for some women to learn, and I would say myself included, to sort of battle that imposter syndrome or learn how to advocate for ourselves. Yes. Are there any biases you've seen or felt when it comes to, especially women in leadership? Because, at this position, you've gone through all of the sort of microaggressions, you've championed, you've advocated for yourself, you've championed other women. But do you find that there's still stereotypes you have to kind of tackle along the way?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, we're still on Earth. We still have the same, sort of like default stereotypes across. I'm an African woman. There are lots of stereotypes. The list is long. So that it's gonna take a while. I wish for a world where there aren't any biases, but we're not there yet. For sure, we're not there yet. It is, I'm not going to lie, it is very disconcerting, but I also have perspective in that when I started in tech, I didn't even have women, like I didn't, let alone Black women in a lot of the rooms I was in. one of the things I admired a lot about Twitter and why I was so excited to work for that company was I really saw a lot of diversity. Like they weren't just talking about it. I saw the action behind it. But for sure, that did not mean perfection either. There were lots of issues there. So the question is not going to be, is there? There is. And there is in society. So the work is a microcosm of society. So if we're still seeing the same issues in our communities, in our where we live, in other areas of our lives, it's going to be at work because you're dealing with the same people. It's a people problem, right? And it's a problem of awareness and growth, right? And so on an individual level, the question is not, trying to escape it. The question is, do you have the tools to be able to handle it if and when it crosses your path, right? And this is why it's a team sport. So, I have to encourage and I have to do my part when I'm in the positions I'm in because there aren't enough of us. There's not going to be some momentum that's just going to change it. Every woman, when a door is opened, you have to have that subconscious understanding that you're bringing 20 people with you. So that for the next batch of women, it will be slightly easier because those 20 will bring 20, right? And so it's a math problem. We have a math problem at the top. And so I'm a mathematician underneath the engineering. So this is in my mind, I'm like, no, there's no choice. Like when you get in through the door, you have to keep it wide as much as possible. That's my job as the door opener. Get as many people in. And the quicker I can, the less work I have to do. Like it's very practical, right? And so that is part of the thing is that as a woman, which is our natural, like we have a natural proclivity to be supportive, right? I encourage every woman to, when you see other women, like form connections, like figure out how can I help and how can they help you? Like there's always a win-win situation in every opportunity that crosses your path and be proactive about it. This is what I'm saying. Like people should take an active role in things, not just wait for things to happen for them. Find alliances, create community. That's one of the things I loved about a lot of the initiatives, Amrita, you and the team were doing in India. Like, it was a no-brainer, but like I understand the power of visibility and I understand the power of sponsorship, right? Like these words are created and they're necessary in the process. Like we can't be just like, oh, it will just happen. No, you have to be proactive about it. It was important to sponsor. It was important to create visibility because what people don't know, they can't support, right? Yeah. Visibility for women is half of the battle, right? Like women do amazing things. The question will be, how do you create the space, the visibility so people see this? And how do you create the opportunity? Don't just create the visibility. You now have to create the opportunity to pull them forward, right? And so that's where anyone that's like, I'm supportive of women, I'm like, please open your checkbooks, open your Rolodexes. Like, let's actually create the opportunity because that's the only way that those 20 women I'm talking about actually go through because the system is not designed necessarily to do it by default. And until that system changes, we have to do the manual work and anyone who gets a step forward, you got to try and bring as many people with you. So don't be shy about like, hey, there's biases. That's reality. There's biases in your village. There's biases in your town. That's not the issue here. How do you work around them? What are the tools you develop? And when you get into a position where you are a door opener, how can you be proactive in bringing more people? Because it's a critical mass problem. The more of us there are, the less work you will have to do as an individual, the more fun it will be, to be fair. Like it's great to have that diversity of women in the workplace. It's great to bring those perspectives. And the less and less the biases will creep up because there'll be more equilibrium in the people of decision-making positions, right? The more women leaders we have, the less we'll have to talk about the biases because they will already be in a decision-making power to start to change the system around.
Yeah.
Right.
I like how you say it's a mathematical problem because you're right, exponentially, like you will constantly, and I'm going to use door opener now. I like this as a designation. We should be door openers. We have two more questions for you, Uche, because, just keeping time limits in mind. But I really hope one day we can do this in person in India or one of these emerging markets.
I'm cheering you on, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to be back in India.
It'll be amazing. So, one question, just sort of building on what you've been sharing. So, if you had sort of one or two tips to give somebody who's a job candidate in this sort of daunting economy, it could be a woman in tech, it could be somebody in one of these emerging markets that you work so closely with. What would be a tip to make somebody an ideal candidate? What do you look out for when you're hiring, for example?
It's a great question. In this market, I'm really looking for someone who's showing curiosity, flexibility, and grit, right? I'm looking for scrappiness. Like, this is the kind of market that, lots of things happening, things are unstable. I'm looking for someone who can be resilient, but flexible, right? So it's really a great idea to be able to demonstrate like your ability to problem solve on your feet, your examples of like scrappiness and like how you're able to move through difficult times. I think that muscle, the reason when hard times shows up and corporations suffer is I don't think they have enough resilience. They may not have enough people with the tools to be able to handle change effectively, or to be able to have the flexibility to navigate what may show up, especially as companies go through inflection points, right? So when the economy isn't the way it is and the people have made their plans based on a reality that never showed up, there's a little bit of angst and anxiety in the system. So I'm looking for people that don't run away from that, but know how to navigate that. I'm not necessarily saying everyone needs to be super happy about it, but if you know how to navigate that, that's a really, really important muscle. It means that during, good times, you're fine. And during bad times, you'll still be resilient and will be able to figure out a way forward, even as more constraints come into the system. So you're resourceful. You have that tendency to look for ways forward and lean in versus, retract in fear. It's difficult, but it's something that's useful to develop even in life. It's not just for work. So in this kind of a job market, curiosity, flexibility, your examples of resilience and scrappiness, bring those to the forefront. Help people realize that it doesn't really matter what environment, your resilience enables you to assess the situation and navigate, figure out a way through, right? You will do things despite the fear, right? Those are the kinds of leaned in sort of individuals that we're looking for. And, now in this market with so many people, unfortunately, in that layoff category in technology, there is that dynamic of like, a lot of competition maybe that you may be thinking in your mind. But if you have this, sort of mentality of resilience, and you're also looking for areas that you can create win-win for yourself and the corporation, I think you'll stand out, right? It's not going to be easy, but those would be really great traits to develop or to highlight and showcase.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I know a lot of people are, it takes a hit on your confidence. So I think the other thing is just to remember that your achievements, right? I mean, what people have done so far, focus on your...
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, because it's very hard to tell someone, don't take this personally. I don't think that's useful. I like to think about it in two ways. There are always lessons to be learned in these areas so that you shore up your, like you take away the lesson, which is the business does what the business needs to survive, right? And so there is a lesson here in like, what are you doing for yourself to make sure you survive and you're not necessarily like attached, your identity isn't attached to the job. Like this is a wake up call and a good one for us as, and like I said, in the aha moment, you taking charge of your life, or you going with the current, right? So that's one lesson. But second, a lot of the decisions that are being made have definitely not been about the individual. It has been about the business. And as sad as that is, that also shows you where you should place businesses in terms of importance in your life, right? And so they're doing what they need to survive. And so put them in the appropriate place. Do not put them in a position in your life that they have not earned or that they should not be there. Right. And so your worth should please should not be tied to the job, but rather this is the time to appreciate like all the impact you've brought to the table and understand, like I said, it's a journey. Right. And so hopefully this reminds us that like nothing is forever. And so hopefully we start to enjoy wherever we are, like, because we don't know how long it's going to be. We have this false security that, yes, I know what's going to happen. Regardless of the layoffs, you actually don't. You actually don't. And these kinds of situations in the industry reminds me that I don't know what's coming tomorrow, but am I maximizing today? And am I in the direction that I want for my life? Or am I going with the flow? And so whatever happens, I'm going to be impacted in a reactive way, right? So, but no one can take what you've done. Like those achievements that people have made, hopefully they enjoyed it. And if they didn't, hopefully now they learned that is the essence. In essence, the most important aspect of any company you're at is please enjoy what you're doing, because that's what you get to take with you. Please maintain the relationships. Networking is huge. The people is what makes the company. So just because you're no longer at the same address and going in with the same color badge does not mean that if you've cultivated your relationships, like we're still talking, I'm an advocate of the next thing you're doing, right? The people actually, to me, in your network is the most important thing. Like cheesy as it is, your network is your net worth. So when you have that mindset, like, okay, great. You working at this company today, tomorrow, you've got, friend X that you enjoyed working with, they invite you to come over. No loss, because you invested the time to create that relationship. So your relationships actually are more important. And if you impacted, it's in this situation, please look at that. And if you see that you maybe have not spent enough time in your relationships or your network, please start to prioritize that, because that's the currency.
That's fantastic. That's such good advice. And I love what you said about just remembering that work is work. Like, I think too many of us, make that kind of sort of blur that distinction between work and life. But this is so wonderful, Uche, as always, the wisdom, the positive energy. And I hope that all of us watching or listening to you talk about this, think about ourselves as architects, in tandem with the universe. That would be fantastic. I really appreciate your taking the time. Thank you so much.
Amrita, so proud. I'm looking forward to everything that TapIn is going to bring to the community and the world. And so, I'm a big fan and I'm a supporter. So let's do this.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll be chatting soon then.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.